Good afternoon, everyone. This week's Parsha share, as I mentioned during the week, earlier in the week, that my schedule has changed, and that the Mishlei share is now going to be once a week on Tuesdays, 9 o'clock in the morning, till approximately 9:45, and that the Parsha class is going to be sent out on the YouTube channel. It will be recorded not in front of an audience, and we'll also send out a Parsha message like I normally do on Friday. But just keep posted for each week for the Parsha class. The Parsha class, again, by Thursday night usually will be up on the YouTube channel. So this week's Parsha, the beginning of the Parsha, is one of the most incredible mitzvahs in the Torah, is the mitzvah of Bikurim, of taking our first fruits, of the fruits that grow in the land of Israel, and of dedicating them and bringing them to Yerushalayim, bringing them to the Beis Medrash, bringing them to the Kohen. The Torah tells me, when you come to the land that God has given you as an inheritance, and you will inherit it and settle in it, you'll take from the Reishis Kol Pri Adam, you'll take from the first of the fruits, Asher Tavi Me'artzecha, that will come from your land, Asher Hashem Elokecha Nosin Loch, and again reminding us that it's the land that God has given us. V'samta b'tena, you'll put it in a basket. And then you go to the place that God has decided to rest his name, which is Yerushalayim, and you'll come to the Kohen that was in those days, and you will say to him that I tell you today, and I make a declaration, that I have come to this land that the God has sworn to give unto us. The Kohen takes the basket from your hand, he puts it in front of the Mizbeach of God, and then you say in front of him, you make this declaration, a beautiful declaration, which is incorporated into the Haggadah of Pesach, that Arami Oved Avi, say that an Aramean tried to destroy my forefather, and then my forefather, and we tell a little bit of Jewish history. He went out to Mitzrayim to dwell there, and he ended up staying there for a while, and he proliferated there. Then the Egyptians made us into slaves. They put a difficult work on us. We cried out to Hashem. Hashem heard our voices, which we darshan in the center part. We expound in the center part of the Haggadah. And then God took us out of Egypt, Yad Chazak of Israel, and to you with a strong arm and an outstretched hand, with great signs and wonders. And he brought us to this place, and God gave us this land, Eretz Avas Chalav U'Davash, a land flowing with milk and honey. This farmer is ecstatic over the fact that he has an incredible crop, and he's crying. He's standing in front of God just with such gratitude and with such awesome appreciation of what he's been able to do. So therefore now, God, what I've done is I brought the first of my first fruits. You gave me, Hashem. And it's put in front of God, and then you will bow down in front of the Lord your God. Don't just put it there. You will be grateful for all the goodness that God has done for you in your household. The fact that God has given you so many opportunities to take care of the people around you. You'll just feel that incredible sense of appreciation, and you will bring that appreciation to the temple through a declaration and bringing the first fruits. You know, it's not dissimilar to the fact that we take the first, a lot of person opens up retail, takes the first dollar bill and tapes it to the side of their register and never uses that dollar bill, but that's a sign of appreciation. You know, this is my first dollar that I made, and I recognize that it was coming from Hashem. You know, the guy's not going to do well in business when he takes his first $50 bill and he tapes it to the register. But be that as it may, it's a tremendous sign and a tremendous show of appreciation, of awesome appreciation that we have for all the goodness and the greatness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. Moshe Rabbeinu says the Medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu looked into the future and he saw the Churban Habayis. He saw the destruction of the temple. And he saw that one of the things that are not going to be able to be done when the temple was destroyed was that we're not going to bring the mitzvah of Bikurim. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction to not being able to bring the mitzvah of Bikurim? He instituted tefillah 3 times a day. What? What does Bikurim have to do with tefillah 3 times a day? Don't tell me, because of Akaras, I thought it was a gratitude. There's plenty of things in tefillah. Tefillah is gratitude. Tefillah is also requesting. It's the gimmies. Tefillah is also praising Hashem for everything he does. So it's not just about, it's not just about saying thank you. So why would tefillah be the analog, be the corollary to the mitzvah of Bikurim? There's a beautiful medrash that the medrash says, Rafuna b'shem Rav Masna Omar, B'schus shleisha dvarim nivra olam. The world was created in the merit of three things. B'schus chala, in the merit of the mitzvah of chala, taking off a part of the doughs that we make and giving it to the kohen. U'b'schus masos, and in the merit of maser, of tithes, which again is part of our crops that we give to the kohen. U'b'schus bikurim, and in the merit of bikurim, of taking the first fruits and bringing them up to the temple. So the Gemara says, so the Medrash says that why is this true? Because each one of them is considered a rashis, considered a first. When it says Breishit Bara, it means for the sake of rashis, for the sake of challah, for the sake of maaser, and for the sake of bikurim, of first fruits. Because we understand that umatam, what's the reason? That Breishit Bara Elokim, it says that God created in the beginning God created Breishis for the sake of rashis, v'ein rashis ela chala. And rashis is chala, represents chala, because it's called the rashis haris hosechem. It is the first of our doughs. It's also rashis, is also tithes, it's also maser, because it says rashis digancha, the beginning of your grains. And it also refers to first fruits, because it says rashis bikurei artzecha, because it says the rashis, the beginning of the kol pri adam, of all the fruit of the land. And therefore we understand that these are all rashises, these are all beginnings, and God Breishit Bara Elokim, for the sake of rashis, God created the heavens and the earth. I can understand on a level why chala is critical. I can understand why meiser is critical. But what makes bikurim so critical? Why is it so chashuv, so important, so valuable, that it really justifies the entire creation? So it, of course, begs the question, what is the mitzvah bikurim? What category would the mitzvah bikurim fall under? What is the necessity to bring bikurim? And we know that there was such pomp and ceremony in bikurim that the way it was brought to the temple, the people, the parades, the way that they gathered together to bring it up, each person bringing up theirs, there were no signs to go up to the temple so that they could ask each other, do you know how to get to the temple? Oh, sure, why are you going? Oh, bikurim. Oh, hold on 1 second. Let me get mine. I'll come with you. We'll go together. And they dressed up the bikurim, and they dressed up the animals. They carried the bikurim, and they carried the baskets. It was a massive mitzvah. It was a massive showing. And the reason is because the entire mitzvah, the root of the entire mitzvah, is about akaras hatov, about gratitude, about recognizing that our very existence depends on God. And it's not just being grateful over the fact that we have an opportunity to farm the land, but the realization that we are not farming our own land, the realization that we are farming God's land, and the realization that everything that we have and that we do is dependent upon God. Hakaras hatov is, of course, as we've mentioned many times, the most difficult mitzvah in the Torah, to be grateful, because what you're saying is, I couldn't do this alone, and that's exactly what the mitzvah bikurim is declaring. The mitzvah bikurim is declaring we were almost destroyed. Arami Ovid Avi. An Aramean, Lavan, almost destroyed my forefather. We were almost obliterated. They almost made nothing from us. And if it wasn't for God's intervention, we wouldn't be here to be able to reap this. And if it wasn't for the fact that God heard our prayers in Mitzrayim and brought us out of Mitzrayim, if it wasn't for the fact that God gave us the land of Israel, if it wasn't for the fact that God gave us the ability to be able to farm and to grow these fruits, we would not be here. And the mitzvah of bikurim says in such a loud way that we understand that our very existence depends on God. The mitzvah is done with our thoughts. We bow down, we subjugate ourselves to Hashem. We keep calling him Hashem Elokecha. And then with our speech, because we make this declaration, it has to be done, a verbal declaration. And it's done with our deeds. We bring the first fruits, we wave them. We do a wave with the Kohen in every direction, like we do the lulav, to realize that God is in every place. And then we set it down by the mizbech, by the altar in front of God, in front of the Kohen. So we use our thoughts, and we use our speech, and we use our deed. We use our very existence, our entire body, our entire selves. We use that to praise Hashem. Our entire existence speaks to this concept of realizing the Chazdei Hashem, of the kindnesses of Hashem, and admitting this is a very hard thing. It requires a tremendous amount of energy and a tremendous amount to be able to bow in front of God. Not just because everybody else is doing it, but because my whole existence is bowing in front of him. I bow myself in front of him. To take my speech and to use my words and to use my words to express what I'm feeling, that connection, that gratitude to Hashem, to be able to use my actions, to be able to express that, that's a very difficult thing. To concede that we couldn't do this without God, that's pretty complicated. And that's why when Moshe Rabbeinu looked at this mitzvah bikurim, and he saw the Churban, he saw the destruction of the temple, and he saw we weren't going to have sacrifices anymore, and he saw that we weren't going to have the incense anymore, and that we weren't going to have the Yom Kippur ceremony anymore, he was crestfallen, he was depressed, he was broken. But he was moved into action when he saw that there wasn't going to be any bikurim, when there wasn't going to be any first fruits. Because that's when he realized that a whole body recognition was going to be taken away from us. And what could possibly replace that usage of our thoughts and our speech and our deeds? It could only be tefillah. It could only be prayer. Because who instituted prayer? Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham Avinu, he instituted Shacharis. Yitzchak instituted Mincha, and Yaakov instituted Ma'ariv. Avraham Avinu subjugated all of his thoughts. He bowed himself in front of Hashem. He recognized God. He used his mind, he used his intellect, he used his thoughts to be able to look around the world and to see God, to be able to see that who created me, bara elu, who created all of this, who put all of this here. Avraham Avinu made it that every morning in his life, in every morning when he woke up, he saw God. He recognized him. His thoughts were filled with God. And therefore, Avraham Avinu instituted that first tefillah to remind us that our thoughts have to be subjugated to God. Yitzchak recognized that the entire soul, he was willing to make himself into an oila tamima, into a carbon, into a sacrifice. He was going to be slaughtered by the neck. The neck of Yitzchak, the source, the seat of his speech. When he turned to his children to give them brachas, he says that God should give them Yiten Hashem mitala shamayim. But that the most important thing is that God, you should recognize God. Embedded in his bracha was a bracha to his children, that they should be able to see and recognize God. He used his words to define for them what their life should be about. Yitzchak Avinu subjugated his speech, his words, to the service of Hashem. Yaakov Avinu dedicated his deeds, his actions, to recognizing the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything he did in his lifetime, every action that he took in his lifetime to shape his children into a nation, to give over those tools that were necessary for his children to become the children of Israel, to become the nation of Israel. And therefore Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov dedicated their thoughts, their speech, and their deed. And we don't daven just Avraham's tefillah. We don't daven just Yitzchak's tefillah, and we don't daven just Yaakov's tefillah, but rather together, these three tefillahs have the ability to be able to replace that opportunity for the connection to God, which was lost when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Moshe Rabbeinu recognized what this mitzvah of Bikurim really was. Oh yes, it was Hakaras Hatov, but it was a whole body expression of Hakaras Hatov. Thoughts, deeds, and actions. You know, if you look at the 10 Commandments, we mentioned this even in Mishlei this week, but if you look at the 10 Commandments begin in thoughts. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. Then it turns into speech. Don't take my name in vain. And then it turns into actions. Keep the Shabbos. Honor your parents. And then it continues in actions. Don't kill, don't steal. Don't commit adultery. And then it goes into our words. Don't lie about another person. And then it goes back into our thoughts. Don't covet, don't be jealous of other people. Those 3 points of thought, deed, and speech, that is the 3 parts of every single human being. Of the body, of the emotions, of the intellect. Everything revolves around that. To become a whole person, we have to take all of those 3 arenas and dedicate those to Hashem. And with that simple act of bringing a basket up to Jerusalem and standing in front of the Kohen and saying to the Kohen, I am so appreciative of God, and I'm so appreciative of what God has done, that opportunity to take not just my thoughts and not just my words and not just and my actions, and to wrap them together and to dedicate them to God. Every year when I brought my Bikurim, I reshaped myself. I made myself into a whole human being. When Moshe Rabbeinu recognized that was the mitzvah Bikurim, he said that needs to be replaced. So he went to the Avos Ha'olam and he took their words, their thoughts, their actions that manifested themselves in Shacharis, Mincha, and Ma'ariv. And he said, that's the parallel. That's what you can accomplish with davening. You can accomplish that ability to take your basic self and to attach your basic self to the Ribono Shel Olam, to the Master of the Universe. We're not just saying words when we daven. Like the fellow who brought Bikurim, who brought first fruits to the temple. We are connecting our very existence to God. And if that's not our experience in davening, maybe we're not yet fully davening. Maybe there's still a little bit more and a little more thought that needs to go into it, and a little more that needs to be done. Because if Moshe Rabbeinu instituted tefillah in place of Bikurim, then our tefillah has to be accomplishing what Bikurim could have. And if it's not, that means we have to continue to investigate and understand and uncover what the power of tefillah is, so that tefillah can be an entire expression of our existence, an entire expression of our desire to stay and remain connected to the Master of the Universe. Everybody should have a beautiful, wonderful, amazing Shabbos. We should know only from the brachos that Hashem has in store for us, and that we should be zocha to feel this feeling of full body connection. connection of our mind, of our thoughts, of our speech, of our words, and of our actions. And when we feel that connection should stay eternally. Have a beautiful Shabbos.